Welcome to the Know Your Universe series, where we explain the concepts and ideas of your favorite universe in a better explanation than we can give in origins or in a complete story. We're about to delve into some of the Inhumans, and it crossed my mind that we've never explained who or what the Inhumans are. And since everyone's talking about them thanks to the movies and the TV shows, and the supposed rumor that Marvel is going to replace the X-Men with them, I think it's time that we explain exactly what the Inhumans are. The Inhumans, as a group, first appeared in Fantastic Four issue 45 in 1965. Though there were some members that popped up earlier. Medusa showed up in an earlier Fantastic Four issue, namely number 36, and Gorgon showed up in Fantastic Four 44. Now, things with the Inhumans actually begin millions of years ago in the original Kree-Skrull War. The Kree established a station on the planet Uranus, which was the perfect position between their empires, and while it was on this site, they discovered life on a nearby planet known as Earth. After doing a little bit of research on these life forms, they found that this race had genetic potential because the Celestials had tinkered with their DNA for some unknown reason. Well, the Kree had also previously acquired the body of an Eternal named Arlok, and they took Arlok's DNA and they merged it into the DNA of the human beings. The purpose of this was to see what the evolutionary possibilities of a race that had already been tinkered with by the Celestials were, and if it worked, to use this as a race of superpowered individuals against the Skrulls. Well, as time went on, they abandoned the project because they discovered a prophecy that said that this project would be their downfall. And they left these humans enhanced by the Eternals' DNA alone on the planet Earth. Now, I know we just discussed the Celestials and the Eternals, and I've never touched on them in this channel, but all you really need to know is that very early in Earth's timeline, the Kree tinkered with the DNA of humans and created the First Inhumans. Now, these First Inhumans went on to create their own society, and they decided to hide themselves from the rest of the human population. Using their superior intelligence, they built up their society and technologically surpassed the rest of the world. Eventually, they discovered the Terrigen Bomb, and they discovered that when it was combined with their own DNA, it would grant powers and abilities. But sometimes, these powers and abilities would lead to deformities and genetic damage. Because of this, they opted to selectively breed within themselves to mitigate the many problematic deformities that could possibly arise. As the years moved on, they also learned how to pick up and move their city anytime that it would be discovered, and this way it remained a mystery to the rest of the world. They stayed this way until eventually the current royal family interacted with the rest of Earth's heroes, groups such as Fantastic Four, the Avengers, and the X-Men, and they typically came out of hiding in order to fight against the world-ending threats such as Galactus, Ultron, and Apocalypse. At this time, the Inhumans were led by the royal family consisting of Black Bolt, Medusa, Karnak, Gorgon, Triton, Crystal, and Maximus the Mad, and their pet Lockjaw. The Inhuman society followed a very conformist belief that was based around the concept of your ability to decide who and what you are in their society. Basically, once you were exposed to the Terrigen Bomb and your abilities were revealed, the society would give you your role and your job. No matter how powerful you were, once this role was decided by the council, no Inhuman could break it. At this time, the Inhumans were strictly prohibited from having relationships outside of the Inhuman community for fear of ruining their own bloodline. Though some certain members of the royal family ignored this, and we have examples of that when the Inhuman Crystal married the mutant Quicksilver. Eventually, this would lead to Ronan, the Accuser, arriving and enslaving the Inhumans. Their history with the Kree was then revealed to them, and it was discovered that they were made to look like the other alien races in the galaxy, so that they could blend in and go on espionage missions. Well, Ronan used the Inhumans to disrupt the many peace treaties that were being established in the galaxy, until eventually, Black Bolt, the current king of the Inhumans, challenged Ronan to combat. If Black Bolt won, the Inhumans would walk free. But if Ronan won, they would serve him without any more arguments. Black Bolt did in fact win their freedom, but the Inhuman society believed Black Bolt and the royal family to be failures in their roles, and as a result, they exiled the entire royal family out of the Inhuman city. The royal family then stayed in Latveria, but that didn't go very well because they dealt with, well, Latveria and bigotry. So they eventually returned. Multiple story arcs happen at this point, with the royal family getting more and more involved in the main Marvel 616, but the big event that everyone needs to be aware of for us to move forward with any of the Inhuman stuff is the storyline of Infinity. During this storyline, Thanos arrives on Earth looking for his son, and he eventually goes to Black Bolt demanding answers, because they assume that Thanos' son is an Inhuman. The two begin a fight as Black Bolt won't tell Thanos, but eventually, Black Bolt uses the full extent of his power by telling Thanos a definitive no. Well, the simple act of Black Bolt saying no destroyed the Inhumans' floating city and everything inside. You see, Black Bolt's actual Inhuman power was the power of his voice, and a simple whisper could massively destroy everything around him. One of the key components that was inside of the Inhuman city was the Terrigen Bomb, a bomb that was created using the Terrigen crystals and whose intent was to spread the mists as far as possible. Well, after Black Bolt spoke, the city, which had already been evacuated, and the bomb both fell to New York City, and it awakened a whole new slew of Inhumans around the world that could possibly join the Inhuman family. We do find out later that this is exactly what Black Bolt intended. He wanted to basically revive the Inhuman race. This then leads to a new series of events titled Inhumanity, in which new Inhumans are waking up all over the world, and in this new batch of Inhumans, we're getting new superheroes, such as the new Miss Marvel. Basically, think of the Inhumans as a different kind of X-Men, because that's exactly what it appears Marvel wants you to think since they still own the rights to the Inhumans. Now, the Inhumans in general aren't just being used to create new characters in the Marvel comic line, they're also popping up in the shows and the movies. So the Inhumans are in fact getting a movie all about themselves. But they are also the current plot point in the current season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. One last thing I do want to explain is how the Terrigen Mist creates an Inhuman. Now, in order for this to work, the Inhuman gene needs to already be in the person on a cellular level. But if it is, the Terrigen crystals are then exposed to water, and it creates the Terrigen Mist. These vapors are then pumped directly into the potential Inhuman, or they're just set off into the atmosphere so that anybody nearby can breathe it and turn into an Inhuman. Once these vapors are a part of the new Inhuman somehow, most Inhumans will then cocoon themselves. The time the person spends in the cocoon is decided by a number of factors, but the longest it seems to have ever lasted was 13 days, and it's also been shown to be instantaneous. Once the person emerges from the cocoon, they now have their new abilities and they're officially an Inhuman. But sometimes, the cocoon can be triggered, but no powers are granted, and when this happens, it typically ends in death for the person. While it's not known how the Terrigenesis process decides the individual's powers, it appears to respond to the needs, fears, and desires of the Inhuman as an individual or the nation as a whole. If you want to see a great example of the Terrigenesis process, check out the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 2 mid-season finale. And that's it, all the basic information you need to understand what the Inhumans are and how they function. We'll be going a lot more in depth into this as we get closer to more Inhuman events and movies, and we're also going to be slowly explaining more of the individual Inhumans, beginning with Miss Marvel, hence why I wanted to explain this to you. I'm Benny for Comicstorian, and like this video if you learned anything, and follow us on Twitter if you want to chat about this video or anything else on the channel. Otherwise, I'll see you guys next time right here at Comicstorian.